Are we going?
It says live.
Okay, it says live for you, then it's probably live. And I'm just going to talk. No? What? Can anyone... Are you guys on the live show page? Either any of you? Like
No.
in YouTube? Because that's... Sorry, I know it says live on ours, but it's not showing up on there right at the moment. Maybe that's just me. Maybe not.
Wait for the echo.
Okay. No, I think we're good. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. And I need to authorize another thing.
Yeah, we're here. We're live.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Whoa. Okay, it's done something new for me that it's not done before, so that's interesting. Alright.
Oh.
I don't have video of us as we're talking, so I can see the video on the YouTube thing. Why? But not on here. Sorry.
To boldly go where no one has gone before.
This is very strange. Why can't I see us talking? Okay. How about I'll just introduce us, and then you guys can talk for a little while I try and figure out what's going on. So hello to everyone who's watching, despite some minor technical difficulties. My name is Nicole, and we will be talking about Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. This was the book club pick for the Booktube Reading Buddies this month, in the month of September, and I am joined by 3 other lovely panelists who have also all read the book, and so I'll start with Elizabeth. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Elizabeth. My channel is Books and Pieces. I am actually rereading Ancillary Justice now. I read it the first time back in March when it was first nominated for the Hugo Awards, and yes, I loved it, and now I'm rereading it again because it's that good.
All right, and Brock?
Hello, I'm Brock. My channel is Let's Read, and read Ancillary Justice as part of the group read and quite enjoyed it. There's, it's interesting because I've kind of been reading all female authors in September, which has been really fun, but also books that themselves are challenging issues of gender. So granted, that's only 2 books. That's only Mirror Empire and Ancillary Justice. But it's been an interesting month, especially reading this book. Getting back into it later on, I had a hard time switching from things like she and going back into a book that actually uses multiple gender pronouns after the fact. But anyway, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Did you read Left Hand of Darkness too this month?
No, I still need to read that one.
Done the other pronouns. Great. So anyway, and Michael, you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Michael. My channel is Bitten by a Radioactive Book. I've read Ancillary Justice for the first time with the group, and I wasn't really fond of the book. I liked the general ideas, the stylistic elements of the book, but I wasn't really engaged by it. I wasn't engaged by characters or plot. We're going to talk about this, I think, in a little while. And yeah, I think all the idea things I found really great, but all the bookish things about the book, yeah, I wasn't that fond of.
Alright, and I guess I should probably mention, just because you guys have mentioned it, I read this book for the first time in November of last year when it was the book club pick for the Sword and Laser book club, and I kind of skimmed it this time, so I'm not sure I 100% reread it, but I should remember everything that's going on. But so I would have read it kind of before there was a lot of hype about it, so this book has won a lot of awards in science, a lot of the major science fiction and fantasy awards this year. It won the Hugo Award, the Nebula Award, the author won the Arthur C. Clarke Award, etc., etc. So I guess the first question is, how do you guys feel about the award nominations? Do you think the book is deserving of the nominations and the wins that it's had at this point, or do you think it's a little bit overrated?
That was somebody else first.
I was excited to see all the awards and hear about everything that it was nominated for and eventually won, even before I got to read it. When the Hugo Awards came around, it was like the one book I was rooting for, just based on what I understood from the premise alone. And the all the other books on the Hugo Award roster, I was sort of whatever about. I was kind of impartial to them. I'm like, oh, that's nice. That one's cool. I'm glad that one got a nomination. But ultimately, I was just like, that seems to be the one that I would put my money on, even though I hadn't read any of them at all by the time the awards were announced. And it seems to be in keeping with a lot of the books that have won in the past, or at least been nominated, where the book itself may not be the best story you've ever read that you like recommend to all your friends, like you have to read this book, but it was certainly I find that the Nebula and Hugo Awards, the ones that get nominated for that, are typically books that make you think a little bit, and so going into that, I think the book did that. It certainly makes you think, and I think that's kind of in the spirit of what the awards are about. I could be wrong, though, because everyone seems to have a controversy whenever the Hugo Awards come up for anything, so...
I would agree with that to some extent. I mean, I think the Hugo and Nebula Awards, the Hugo Award in particular, tends to have books that people have strong feelings about because it's a fan vote award, right? So it's books that people have a strong enough feeling that they're willing to, make a blog post about it or talk about it. And that doesn't necessarily make the books more or less enjoyable, but I think oftentimes they're books that have a talking point or something going on that's very provocative to think about. Or in the case of something like Red Shirts, that's an author that has a huge fan following. So, I mean, from those awards, or from Hugo Award in particular, I'm really not surprised that it won that it was nominated, or that it won that. I was a little bit more surprised that it won so many of the other ones, though.
I thought it was unsurprising more that it won the Nebula, because the Nebula is given by the Science Fiction Writers of America. So it is a writers giving to writers award. And Ann Leckie is very well respected. It's a very well written novel. Like, the literary value of it is very high, so you can kind of see how it got them. Whereas the Hugo, being fan one, it's not so much. There's a wonderful blog that's happened. I think it's relatively new, where they're analysing and guessing the Hugo nominees based on maths, basically. They're giving values to things based on the hype that they have, whether the author has previously won a Hugo, and other values that they consider to be key indicators of whether you'll win. And Ancillary Justice didn't have enormous before release hype, but was quite big. Obviously, it's come out on a major publisher as a first novel, which is very good. It wasn't like super well known, but then it just built and built and built and built and built, like over time, just like whoop, and then won. Whereas someone like Red Shirts, John Scalzi, is hugely well known, so whenever he puts a book out, he is probably going to get nominated into the shortlist. So I found it interesting that it won. Not interesting that it won a Hugo. It definitely deserved to win out of the shortlist by a mile, like compared to the rest of them. But yeah, I felt like it was a more interesting win than the Nebula. The Nebula, it was the obvious choice. I don't actually know how the Clarke Award is picked.
Arthur C. Clarke Award is a panel award, and it's given to the, I believe it's awarded to the author, technically. So it's authors who are in, like, their first 2 years of publication or something like that.
It's a new author award.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I have no clue at all about how awards are given out, actually. So that was very interesting. I heard a bit about what the Hugo was all about, but I think generally when I think about rewards or awards, it's also about unique ideas, and I think in this point, with the stylistic elements the book brings to the table, and how it breaks the wall between the reader and and the work itself by its, as I said, stylistic elements. I think that is very unique, and I think these are things why awards are getting awarded in the end to something. And therefore, even though I personally didn't connect with the book, I think that it's a very good choice for an award book.
Sorry, I'm trying to fix my sun issue right now.
When it comes to, I mean, I guess it applies to this book, but when it comes to and like the Hugo Awards specifically, it seems like in terms of thinking books, I would say it's the same thing about like China Miéville's books that have been nominated, not necessarily the ones that have won, but the ones that were nominated. It seems like those are thinky books too, like The City in the City and Embassy Town. You know, those are books that I thought were quite good, but I wouldn't recommend them to everybody. They're not exactly the most, they're not, you know, especially Embassy Town. It's not the most popular book I would recommend to people, but in terms of it being nominated, and did it win? I can't remember.
I think Embassy Town won.
Because one of his books shared a win one year or something. But you know, that book itself was looking at language and thinking about language and myth and storytelling among cultures, and well, as one of the themes, not all the themes, but it was. It just seems like even though it is a popularity award, the award itself does tend to focus on books that just sort of make you go, at the start, and like just in their base premise, they just go, I wonder what that one's about, or, you know, this is about this, and a lot of it's left up to you to think about what the book really is about, and I think Ancillary Justice is one of the books that's like that.
Yeah, no, Embassy Town won the local award, but didn't was nominated.
Nominated but didn't win. Okay. No.
Okay, I lied. I think that's kind of a reflection of who is voting for the Hugos. Like a lot of, well, I mean, Elizabeth can talk about this more because she went to them. A lot of the people who care enough to vote and to pay for the membership and everything are people who have read a lot of science fiction and fantasy and will have seen kind of the basic ideas 100 times. So you have to do something unique.
It's not exactly a normal popularity contest. It's not like who any sort of reader or science fiction reader would want to vote for. It's a popularity contest between maybe 15,000 people, not 15,000, 1,500 people at most. So amongst 1,500 people, which is the most popular novel? Like, that's a very different ballgame. 1,500 of, like, you're super into science fiction readers. Yeah, like you say, you're going to have to do something to surprise them, interest them, whatever. Something, and it uses the Australian voting system rather than a straight first past the post. So it's preferential. So even if you come fourth in the original vote system, you could gain votes from people who get knocked out and end up winning.
All right, so let's talk about the book.
Yes, let's talk about the book.
Oh, there was a book?
Yes. So...
No, wait.
Okay, where did we want to start? Yep, that one. Thank you for holding that up because I have it on my Kindle.
That is so good.
I held it the wrong one first. It's this one.
Oh.
Yes, you already have the second one. So this book, okay, I guess I should give a plot summary. The book follows primarily a character called Breck, there's two main plot lines for her. One is sort of the current plot line, which is told in more of the present tense. So I guess the present plot line and a past plot line that happened 19 years ago. And in the past plot line, Breck is a spaceship called Justice of Torin, and as a spaceship, she has her spaceship, obviously, and then she also has a whole bunch of ancillary bodies, and so these are people who have died and been reanimated by the Radakai Empire, and these bodies can be controlled by Justice of Torin, and so she has sort of her own little mini army. And at the end of the plotline of the 19 years ago, the spaceship Justice of Torin is destroyed, but she manages to save this one body, this one ancillary, which is called Breck in the current timeline. So Breck is trying to essentially avenge herself after someone destroys the rest of her. So it's like 99% of her got blown up and 1% of her is trying to avenge herself. So let's talk about, okay, do you want to talk about the she thing? Should we do the she thing?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, so in this book, the male pronouns, the culture that Breck is a part of only recognizes one gender, and in the book this is designated as she, as the feminine gender. So there are no, I mean, there's still biologically male people, but the culture doesn't recognize.
Oh.
The culture doesn't recognize either gender pronoun.
Yeah.
It's not that there's one gender, it's that there's no gender. They don't see it. So the way that Ann Leckie translates it is by using she only. She had to pick one.
Is that actually the case?
Yes.
Because I had the impression it was more of a grammatical thing, a language thing, that they say we just have one gender in our language, and therefore everyone, if it's a male or female biological body, is just referred to with one gender because the language only allows the gender.
No, in the culture as well, they don't recognize the gender differences. They have all relationships between same sexes, different sexes. It's irrelevant to reproduction, and she actually says at one point how they all dress the same or differently, and it has no relevance to their gender. They long hair, short hair, skirts, dresses, whatever. It's not done on gender lines.
Well, because they have features that would normally in other cultures be considered gendered features, but they don't necessarily distinguish between them. Like there's that. We're skipping ahead to the end of the book almost, but near the end of the book, when she's on that that giant space station, there's a paragraph, or there's many paragraphs just devoted to when she walks in and sees many people all walking around wearing a multitude of colors and styles and arrays of fashion that, because she's been living on a planet for 20 years, she's overwhelmed by it, even though it's the normal, it's the standard where there isn't a distinction. But she finds herself always wanting to, she finds herself falling into the habit of making that distinction of, oh, that's a guy, that's a girl, that's a this, that's a that, and she's a little overwhelmed by it and has to kind of remember that, oh yeah, this is the way that my culture is, and it's great. Well, she's gone.
Yeah.
Should we wait for her to get back before we explain? I mean, this was Michael's idea, so maybe Michael should explain it. What was
I actually sent a mail to the other three yesterday, because the idea, the stylistic idea of talking about gender with having only one grammatical gender, and only using she as a pronoun, would make an interesting experiment if we tried as well during this hangout. And so I suggested we try to avoid saying he and him whenever it might occur in this discussion, and see if we can manage to just speak in one pronoun, and maybe see if this has an effect on the discussion overall.
I think she's got a point.
Well played. Yes, so that's the game we'll be playing throughout talking. If Nicole ever gets back, she'll be joining in with the rest of us.
How was that for everybody reading it with the she aspect of it, having that aspect of language removed? How was that? How did you guys find it?
The first time I read it was very, very challenging at first. I really enjoyed it because I think it gives you that sort of sense of strangeness. And I was most familiar with it from The Left Hand of Darkness, where everybody's a he. But I found that using the she was better in the sense of like making your brain work, because I find in a lot of books when they start off saying, I'm referring to all humans, they immediately go, so everybody's he. So you can assume all humans when somebody says he. Whereas when they say she, it immediately like jars you, especially when they say she is clearly male. It was much more of a difference than you would normally expect.
I found it not that bad as I thought it would be. From just reading it, I wasn't confused, but the thing that you just mentioned, when a character comes up, I often recognized that the first thing, because I'm male, was that I tried to make this character a male character. That happened very often, and then I later on decided for some of the characters that I would make them female, and that was quite an interesting experience to have when you actually read the book. And I think that every one of us may have other characters in mind when she thinks about the male or female characters of the book.
I always thought I found it a little difficult to get into at first because, again, it was a specific example I can think of is when there's a section where she's flying a lander and she's been, they're in the snow, and then she comes along, another lander or another flyer comes in, lands, and she's back! Yay!
Yes. Sorry, my computer just totally died on me.
Well, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
I'll just.
Continue.
There's another lander that comes, and there's a bunch of people who get out and they want to cause trouble. They almost want to like rob her or hijack her, and so they threaten her. And it was interesting because in that situation, it was almost like, well, this is a wild, wild west kind of situation where you've got your lone gunman, gun-she, against 4 or 5 other she's. And it was interesting because they were all referred to as she, I just said, okay, they're female. But then looking back over that chapter, you can swap anybody at any given time, and it's interesting how it actually changes how you kind of perceive things. Not that, you could mix and match it. You could say, well, maybe 3 of them were all women, maybe 3 of them were all men, and just replaying that chapter in your mind is an interesting little experiment because it changes like the visual, it changes how that thing unfolds, even though it's told and unfolds the exact same way. It's just it makes some of the traits of the characters really interesting.
But reading it the second time, I got to say it was a lot easier. Not easier, just irrelevant. I just didn't pay attention to it unless it was one of the really explicit moments, like where she sees Syvarden in the snow and the Milters refer to him as him, but then she continues on referring to him as she. So that was fine. So other than moments like that, it was just that was not an issue. You just got on with it, and it was like, yeah, okay, they could be male, they could be female. Let's get on with the rest of it. And you started noticing other things that I don't know, reflected that sort of uncertainty a lot more. That wasn't the only thing that was making you realize how alien this world was.
At first, it kind of bothered me a little bit, but after a while, I kind of started letting it go. Especially once you realize that in this particular culture, like it's totally really doesn't matter. Like they have so much more advanced technology that like the minor differences in strength or whatever between genders really don't matter. Like when you can modify a human body so much, it really ceases to matter what gender that person started out as. So I think in the beginning, because I come from a culture, that cares about that, I tried to figure it out, but after a while I kind of just like let it go and just like accepted that everybody was a person and whatever, doesn't really matter.
I preferred that she decided not to reveal like every single character. How they, some enter the story and then leave the story, but you don't know. I liked that she kept it ambiguous and only chose to reveal it for a few select characters. And like the society that they're living in. It was by simply just taking out the male aspects or the male grammar of in the writing of this, I thought it was amazing because she's showing us a culture where it's not a problem, where these types of issues don't happen in terms of gender issues and sexism and that inequality between sexes. And I liked that she was trying to show us a culture where that doesn't exist. Showing us by example. It's like, this is how normal things can be if we all stop getting hung up on the current issues of gender. And I'm going somewhere with this. Give me a second. I'm pausing. No, crap. There's even though the culture that she lives in has a number of problems, but they're not related to gender. The problems that are going on with the in charge person, Anander, the problems that are going on with that are problems of self-identity and not because of a person being a male or a woman, that kind of thing. I thought it was cool that you have a culture that's pretty normal and everyone's generally, I would say, pretty happy, except for the people at the top, because there's a lot of stuff going on that people at the bottom may not necessarily be aware of.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that everyone was happy. There's huge amounts of classism in this society. It's messed up in its own way. It just doesn't have gender issues. It's also not a very nice society, which I found fascinating. Like, reading about a book about a character who is not necessarily very nice sometimes, in a society that is definitely not very nice. But you're still like kind of in there rooting for them a little bit.
Yeah, like when they show the society proper, I would say, like when they're on that space station near the end of the book, where everyone's walking around and enjoying their lives, but probably in ignorance of what's going on, say on like the borders or on the fringes of the society, because they're constantly expanding their empire and incorporating other societies and cultures. I get what you're saying with that, because it's not that happy a place now that I think about it. Thanks.
We're very happy living the way we do. That doesn't mean that the world isn't really messed up, and America and Britain don't have a lot to answer for, like Canada.
Yeah, I think they are a very aggressive and conquering race, and I found very interesting that their whole moral system or their whole society seems to be very based on religion. So they on the one hand they are very advanced, and I think Brock, wasn't it you that said it also in the discussion thread, that it's kind of a strange thing that that a society can be so advanced on the one hand, but then so zealous maybe on the other hand as well, because I had the feeling that there was a lot of this urge to expand and conquer came from the position of feeling very righteous about themselves and their society, and they really believed in their religion and their morals, and so they had absolutely no problem with putting their own beliefs ahead of other cultures and conquering them.
Yeah, I think I agree that the empire that we're looking at, the Redikai, or how are you guys saying it? Redich? Anyway, that they're a very aggressive empire, and they're not necessarily the nicest of people. Like, a lot of their methods are pretty extreme. We talk about pretty early on in the book about how they basically just wiped out the whole planet of what was that called? Grised.
In Welsh, double D is pronounced with like TH, and I always pronounced it like that.
Oh, okay, I can go with that.
But I live in Wales.
Or aggressive. So yeah, that planet kind of just pissed them off, and so they just totally destroy it. And I think it's pretty clear from the beginning that this is a very aggressive, outward expanding empire that doesn't care a lot about other people. And I also thought it was interesting in terms of like an economic model, because this sort of imperial expansion is something that I think we kind of think of as being sort of in the past kind of thing. So it's interesting to see that moved into the future. That sort of very imperial, like we have to expand to keep growing our economy, to keep getting more stuff kind of idea.
I think I'll amend my statement and say it's a happy place when everyone's brainwashed and the dust settles. There, I'll go with that. It reminded me. Oh,
no, go on.
It reminded me a lot of sort of The Culture by Ian M. Banks, where you have artificial intelligences playing a super key role in how things are run. Because in The Culture, it's kind of the same way, where you have machines at the top making decisions. Only here in Ancillary Justice, they're following, you know, orders of nobility and royalty in essence. But I just thought that was interesting, how it kind of took a similar setting and made it its own thing. Like Ann Leckie really took the idea and made a society that I could kind of believe in from a completely different perspective. I thought it was cool.
I mean, are we assuming that everybody listening has read this and knows the very basics of The Culture, or should we explain? Well, basically, the culture of the Raj, it's R-A-D-C-H, is ruled by an artificial intelligence called Ananda Miyanai, something like that. Yeah. And so it's ruled by an artificial intelligence, and there are many other artificial intelligences that run ships, which are a huge part of an imperializing force.
I don't know if Ananda Miyanai is supposed to be an artificial intelligence or not. I was always kind of confused by
Given that she has thousands of bodies, I would say yes.
Yes.
I took it to be...
But they're all clones of him, though, so that implies that at one point he had just one body, right?
He's still a she.
Or she, right?
Yeah, there's a good one. Who did we think was male and female, or are we just sticking with everybody's female, or it doesn't matter?
I guess in my brain, because I kind of default to he in my brain, so I guess after a while I kind of started thinking of it as everyone was male instead of female, which is kind of weird now that I think about it.
That is weird.
Yeah. I really don't know. Other than, I'm pretty sure Breck is a girl, and I'm pretty sure her sidekick is a dude. Other than that, I really don't know.
Yeah, I think we're told at some point that Sayvarden is male.
Yeah. Sayvarden is male.
Yeah, and I had Breck also down as being female. And Lieutenant Arn was female for me, and Lieutenant Skyat, is that his name? Skyat
Yes.
was male. So there is the scenes between them. There are scenes on the planet where they talk to each other, then they have a little banter, and then in the end also end up having intercourse. And I had this feeling by that kind of banter, how they behaved there, that Lieutenant Arn was more of a female and Lieutenant Sky was more of a male. So after that, yeah.
That's very much based in our cultural stereotypes. The only people that we know based on the story is Sayvarden, and that's it, I think.
I think technically we know Breck because everyone on Nilt refers to Breck as a she. Like no one ever refers to Breck as a he.
No one ever refers to Breck with a pronoun.
When it comes to
they do, you because it's in the
beginning.
person.
In the beginning of when she's on Nilt, those side characters that she runs in, like right away in the first chapter, refers to her as a little girl, and there's a couple of times where she's referred to as being female, like it could be an insult or she could be female. It's not entirely clear.
I think I know who the doctor is eventually, but I've forgotten because it's so irrelevant. But like the majority, and a couple of side characters, but like the majority of the characters, like Orn and Gayat and still dubious on Ananda. Like, you don't ever find out.
Yeah, I think Ananda. I had the issue with that. I'm a huge fan of Stephen Erickson, and in her books, she has a character called Anumanda Rake, and that's a male, and the name was so similar, so I had Ananda Mianai always down as a male, just from that connection.
I kept thinking of him. I kept thinking of Anumanda Rake in place of, like, that was who I pictured as the Emperor, because he's like this Lord of Doom kind of guy. So that's who I pictured as being that guy, that person. Yeah. Wow, it is actually really hard to only refer to people in the feminine. Okay.
Because I couldn't pronounce her name, Anander Menimene, I always just said like Anander Minnie Mouse because that's where my brain went. But I think that Breck is an interesting character because she, as an ancillary, she's an artificial intelligence first. Before she is ever, before her ancillaries, which would be, anybody, really, could be male, could be female, and then when she's cut off, I mean, granted, it's the body that she's in, but her identity, because of her culture and because of the situation of being, in essence, an artificial intelligence supplanted into another person's body, that totally takes away any distinguishing characteristics she might have in personality, like in terms of what gender she might be and how she behaves and everything, because she has male and female traits or actions based on our perspective, I would say. But I thought it was interesting that as an artificial intelligence, she doesn't necessarily have one because she's something else completely.
Yeah, when she's an AI, well, perhaps we should talk about her as a character as a whole, because Breck isn't just Breck. She's Breck, she's One-esque, and she's Justice of Torin at different times in the novel. And perhaps we should explain that. When she's Justice of Torin, she is the whole ship, everything. Justice of Torin is the ship, all the ancillary bodies, in various teams, and each individual one of them. One-esque is one of the teams of ancillaries, and when we are in the past storyline, the 19 years ago one, she is One-esque, and then she is Justice of Torin briefly. And then in the current storyline, she is Breck, who is one of the 20 One-esque ancillaries. So she is an individual, she's one of 20, and she is one of an enormous ship. But she is the ship and all its bodies as well. And I found that fascinating, and the second time I read it, that was much more what I found myself focusing on, was people who were something and then something else. They become less or more than what they were. They were different things. So Justice of Torin is very, very different than Breck, and One-esque is a very distinct personality as part of Justice of Torin, and is kind of reflected in Saivarden, who starts out in the deep, deep past, because Saivarden has been frozen for 1,000 years. In the past, she was very, very rich, very well connected, and then in the current storyline, her house has no money. She is a nobody. She is literally starting from nothing, as a drug addict, nearly dying in the snow. And she doesn't understand anything, just like Breck, as a single body, must find the world very, very different than when she was connected and knew everything. And you find that in a lot of the other characters as well, I think.
Yes. I found that interesting, the differences between Breck as an individual versus a versus one Esk versus the entire ship. It was okay. So this is something that I both really appreciated in the book, and also kind of one of the things that I had a problem with when I was reading it, because it was very difficult to understand. So this is probably the main reason why I would say this isn't necessarily a book for everyone, and it's kind of more targeted towards people who really like science fiction, is because it is a difficult concept to understand, and the way it's presented makes things hard to grasp immediately. So it makes the beginning of the book kind of slow and a little bit confusing, and I think the author needed that time to introduce the concepts of how all of this stuff works, but it does make the beginning kind of slow and confusing and difficult to get into.
Yeah, it was confusing for me up until about halfway through the story. Once a lot of kind of key things were revealed regarding Breck's motivation and regarding what happened in the past to One Esk and Justice of Torin. I always referred to the character as One Esk in my mind because I was so confused doing the Justice of Torin thing, because like Justice of Torin is this big, all-encompassing, can see many things intelligence. And I always referred to her as One Esk, even when she became Breck, because for me, she was always lying when she said Breck. She was trying to hide who she was to Savardin by always referring to herself as Breck. And so I always saw her as One Esk, ultimately. Or when it came time to when it was time to me to just decide or keep it in a perspective I could understand, I just said, "You're One Esk," and just all throughout the story, even though she could be Justice of Torin at any given moment.
I found it hard to call her Justice of Torin because Justice of Torin is so big.
It's powerful.
So big and powerful, and you can't comprehend Justice of Torin's intelligence and knowledge and how many thoughts it's having at one time, because she says that she can see like trackers for everybody on the planet that she's monitoring and the space station surrounding it and all her soldiers on board. She can see, their heart rate and their temperature and all those things about them all at once, and run the spaceship and talk and, have emotions. She has emotions. That's just crazy. But yeah, but One Esk as 20 bodies was like, okay, so 20 people, I can cope with 20 people, but giant Justice of Torin spaceship, bit beyond my realm of comprehension.
It's a little
kind of interesting because that was the one I was connected with the most. I have to say the most because I didn't connect with Breck like at all, and at least with the only Breck version we have in the future, and with One Esk it was a bit on and off. But I think Justice of Torin was actually the incarnation of the character that I got along with best, and for me the chapters really on the Justice of Torin are the strongest ones, the ones I like the most, and I think it's really important for the whole character, because actually what Justice of Torin thinks gets her killed in the end, and I think she's not called Justice without meaning, because on the one hand she is a very character I think that wants to do justice, and this justice element is transferred into Breck in the end, because the Ancillary seeks justice for the Justice of Torin, and Ancillary Justice is that's why the book is called Ancillary Justice from my point of view. And so this justice element is the defining element for me, and the one I could relate to the most.
You just blew my mind.
Well, it gives us a good hint for the next book, which is Ancillary Sword, because the sword is one of the other types of ship. A Justice is a type of ship, very big troop carriers, and a sword would obviously be one of the ones that's smaller and sent in maybe with fewer soldiers, but for more of a purpose. So next time, she is Ancillary Sword.
unrelated question. Can you guys, well, about the questions for people to ask. I think when I left, they stopped using my presets. So can you guys see questions?
I can see some questions.
You can
I
see
have one right here.
All right.
Actually, if you just, I think if you just select my my window, it'll bring it up into the main thing, so that everyone in the stream can see it. But the question is, what is Michael and Elizabeth? What are you guys drinking?
Oh yeah, we're in appropriate time zones for drinking. So I am drinking Oakham Ale Citra, which is very nice. Yeah.
That is an awesome face.
Yeah.
And I'm not even drinking alcohol. It's Vita Malts. It's a German malt beer, and it's more like a refreshing sweet drink. It just has a cloaking spell and tries to be a beer.
Well, now how do I go back to it selecting people at random?
What?
I selected your thingy, and now it won't.
If you click off, if you just basically click my square again, it should disappear. As long as if there's a highlighted square, it means that that's the one you're selecting, and when it's gone, it turns auto.
I'm never going to host one of those.
Challenges.
When it oh dang, I was going to say something, but it's gone, so I've got nothing.
Ancillary Justice, Ancillary Sword, next book. That's where we left off?
Yes.
Breck is kind of a Clint Eastwood character in many ways. You know, she's out for justice. She's by herself. She's kind of like a lone gunman. She's got impeccable aim when she's shooting people. I thought it was really cool to have Breck have kind of those characteristics of a tough, but also really cold. Breck is cold. You know, mostly just because she's hiding everything from you know, Savardin and the people that she's journeying with. She doesn't tell anybody the truth because she's trying to keep a low profile until she can kind of exact justice or exact revenge. But it's interesting that because she's burying a lot of that so deep and not sharing it with anybody, she comes off as a very cold character. Just, you know, hell-bent on accomplishing her quest at any cost is what I felt. How did everyone else feel? Yeah.
I think it's also partially due to the fact that she is an AI. Like, at no point in this book did I feel that Breck was a human being, or any of her various incarnations were human beings. Like, she is clearly an AI to me throughout the entire book. So to me, it makes sense that she comes off as being very cold and distant. Like, this didn't feel like a character that I was supposed to relate to. I mean, even if you just consider how many people Justin Zaptorin kills, like, in the course of the book, like, just on that one planet. Like, she kills more people. Like, she is a very violent person thing, and not someone I would want to really see myself in. So for me, she was an AI, and she always came off that way, so the coldness made sense, and I think worked for me.
So did Ann Leckie then give her, like, have her whistle and sing, like, the songs to give her humanity? Is that sort of...
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't have this thought at all. I posted on Twitter that I thought I was totally in love with Breck and I have to run off and marry her.
Your poor husband.
It'll be fine. Anyway, Breck will probably kill him, so it's okay.
So how did you feel about her then, if you perceived her as being more human?
I thought, like I said, I thought Justice of Torrent was alien. Like, no way could you understand that. But One-esque is very distinct from Justice of Torrent. Like, it's only One-esque who sings. Like they said, when she returned to Justice of Torrent, the lieutenants at breakfast actually comment on the fact, oh, One-esque is back. All the singing is going to start again. How annoying. So Two-esque, who you would think would be more similar or something, because she's not one of the other named ancillary sections like Wa or I can't remember any of the others off the top of my head, but there are other ancillary segments. It's nothing like her. Like they are a distinct set of people, or it is a distinct set of people. it has characteristics. She has characteristics. And they say, you know, ships have favorites, they have emotions. It's very, very clear they have emotions. And they like or dislike certain characters. She helps Saivarden no matter what. You know, she doesn't even know why she's doing it, but it's obviously that very, like, human attachment. You say she's an AI, but she is an AI in a human body. Like, she is affected by human things. She has hormones and physical reactions to stuff, and her AI-ness is within a human body, so it has human features somehow.
But does she though? Because I mean, all of the things you mention are things that we see as outward expressions of humanity, right? But they're all very small aspects of what it is to be human. Like, I am not convinced that she is really human. Like, maybe she's halfway there, like, at best, but at no point was I ever really convinced that she was a human.
I don't think she is totally a human.
But
yeah, I think she's totally human, because this was how I was reading it, because everything she does for love. Why do I say that? I think if you look at the development, you have one Ask, and one Ask is on the planet with Lieutenant Ann, and Lieutenant Ann and one Ask have a very strong bond. And I personally think that one Ask, and that is what makes one Ask so special, falls in love with Lieutenant Ann, not knowingly, but on a subconscious level. And then later on, when she's on the ship and is told she has to kill Lieutenant Ann, and she has to do it, that is a trigger for her. That is the trigger where she is set on her revenge and killing spree. Not really killing spree, but on her. She gets the idea there that something is not right, and that she has to have justice for Lieutenant Ann, and that is the reason why every time when Lieutenant Ann's family is mentioned later on, she seems to care about them. She always asks if Lieutenant Ann's family is all right, what happened to them, and I personally saw it like that she had this bond, and even I would even call it love, because I think just having an AI said, yeah, I was betrayed, not so much for going on and trying to kill like the Emperor of the universe, but being in love and having to kill your own lover, strong motivation here. Think about it.
I would totally agree. I think that they love each other. There's some really touching scenes, like when they go back to Justice of Torren, and she's making sure that Lieutenant Ann is having her bath, and she's standing over her, making sure that she has time, and keeping it quiet and keeping her calm when she's obviously traumatized after the events on Oars. And it's just, oh, it's so sweet. It's just like, oh my god. It's just really nice to all the kids, all the little children on the planet who come and do the temple bearing stuff and put the flowers out. And she gives them gifts, but she gives them thoughtful gifts. Gifts that they can use and will like, and she gives them sweets and things. And then when she later sees them grown up, and she has guilt and strange, you know, emotions and things, and then she's interacts really well with the children on Milt, and yeah, I don't know. The bit where she goes to the bar on Milt, and she's just like, you know what, fuck everything. I don't care what Saivarden's doing. I don't care if she's gonna screw me over. I've got a beer. I've got music. I'm just gonna chill. And it's just like, oh, well, it doesn't get much more normal than that.
Yeah, after Lieutenant Ann dies, and the circumstances by which she does so, I was really able to latch on to Breck as a character after a lot of that stuff was explained, because then you understood, well, what she was doing in the first place, why she was doing it, and you kind of got on her side, and it's a very human motivation that she has. But when it comes to when there's that one bit where she is told to pull a gun and shoot, and she pulls the gun and shoots, and that, that was sort of like maybe the AI side, the part that's loyal to, the society that she's in. Yeah, I follow orders. That's good. Wait a minute. No, this was something I cared about. Why did I do that? And then all that conflict and debate goes on with her afterwards, and that's why she ends up, having to be disposed of. Or Justice Satoran needs to be annihilated at the end of it all, because, after this impulse, yep, I'm following orders, comes this, oh, crud, what did I do? And she wasn't prepared for the guilt, I think.
I guess that's true, but I'm still not convinced she's a human being. But I guess we'll just have to wait for the next book to see if I get convinced.
Joe on Twitter has said that he reckons they're never 100% human. He got the idea that there are additional structures added to the brain when they're converted. Oh God, the horrific moment where the new ancillary body is added after one of them gets killed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So, okay, do you guys want to talk about our final, everybody's final ratings, and if we plan to continue with the next one, and then do the spoilery discussion after that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. So, I gave this book 4 stars when I read it. I liked it. I do feel like it suffered some issues with pacing, particularly in the beginning. I'm not really sure how the author could rectify that. I think with the complexity of the world that she set up, there's not really a quick fix for that, but at the same time, I still found it to be a difficult book to get started with. So that's the main reason why I had given it 4 stars. I do plan to read Ancillary Sword in the future. I'm not exactly sure when I'll get around to it. Yes. What did you guys think? Whoever wants to go first.
Okay. I rated it 2 stars, because although I really appreciate the whole stylistic elements, as I said before, the bookish elements did nothing for me. I didn't connect with the characters. Lieutenant Orn was the only one, seeing her through the loving eyes of Brack, that I could a bit connect with, but all the other ones were like, if they lived or died, I didn't care. Especially not Say Warden, who was for me more of a plot device in the end. And the plot itself is, it was not really something that kept me turning the pages. I had the feeling in the first storyline had to wait a lot in the beginning to have the second storyline catch up, and all the interesting things for me personally only went on in the second storyline. And then when it was only one storyline, I was at the point where I personally didn't care anymore what happened, and the ending was like, yeah, okay, and therefore 2 stars on Goodreads is okay, and I appreciate what she did, but the story was just okay, so 2 stars.
Do you plan to read the next one? Trick question.
I'm not sure. I'm a bit torn. Not right away. I can say that. I have a lot of things I want to read this year, so maybe next year. Maybe I'll wait for a few of the reviews to come in and then decide if that's something I want to pick up.
All right, Brock.
I gave it 3 stars. I think some people thought I gave it 2 stars. I gave it 3. I liked it as a book because it was a challenging read, and it's not very often that I. Wow, I'm making myself sound too smart. It's not very often I come across a challenging read. No, it isn't often I read books that I would say challenge me, or like I seek out books that would challenge me that way. And I kind of enjoyed that it did, even though it was kind of frustrating for the first half. And then as soon it was kind of blurry in my mind about what everything was or was really about. But then halfway through, right when a lot of motivations are explained, and you find an emotional connection to this character of Breck, then immediately after that, everything came into sharp focus, and I had a really fun time. Because at the beginning, Breck was sort of a whatever character for me, but then after that moment, I was like, all right, she's on a quest, she's got a thing to go do, and she's determined to do it. And then also just after we also kind of travel to other other worlds or other environments after that. I really enjoyed the journey we got to go on after that point. In terms of reading the next one, I'm excited to read the next one. As soon as I found out there were sample chapters, I'm like, oh, hey, this is cool. It will ultimately be a book that I read probably a year from now, just based on all the current stuff I'm trying to read and knock out. But definitely excited to read the next one, and kind of wondering what will happen, because I mean, there is sort of a story that wraps up here, and I didn't feel like it was something that demands a sequel or another journey, but you just wonder, well, with what's been done in this first book, it's kind of open. What could happen now? And I have no expectations going into the second book, just because I don't know what I should be expecting.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I didn't even know there was a sequel when I read the first one. I was totally surprised when I heard about the sequel. I thought that it was happily wrapped up and was ready, left. You know, lots of questions were still there, but I'm happy with questions at the end. But I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. Loved this book, obviously, given that I am rereading it now. I'm halfway through the second read, and I will definitely be reading the second one, as I already have it. Didn't know that's this one. They're so similar. Finished Ancillary Justice again. I didn't mind the slow beginning. I like slow beginnings. I like it when a book creeps up on you and you're reading it and wondering when something's going to happen, and then you suddenly realize that you don't give a crap because you are just so happy to be in the world with the characters that you love, and it's just fascinating. And the writing is just amazing. Like, going through it the second time and looking more closely at how it's written is amazing.
All right. So, am I getting an echo? From someone? Never mind. Okay.
There's some kind of echo, but
I can put headphones on. That might help.
The neat thing about Ancillary Justice and Ancillary Sword is that the covers are all based on the same piece of artwork, or it's one painting, and so like the 3 books eventually, it's one painting, and it's so like at the end, all 3 books you can put together, front cover to front cover, and you'll see the whole painting, which will be kind of neat.
oh, yeah, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, it does. You're gonna do. Look, it fits.
There we go. Yeah.
That's cute.
So I mean, kudos to the cover artists and designers who for an author's first book, and then for putting together cover art for this new thing, or thinking far enough ahead to have one painting for all 3 covers. I thought it was a neat idea.
That's very clever.
Do we want to talk about how this was her first book? Did you guys talk about that while I was gone by chance? Nope. Okay.
Not too much.
So this was
Only in terms of that it won the Arthur C. Clarke, which has to be a new author.
Yes. So this was her first book. So personally, I found that pretty impressive. So when I read this back in November, it would have been about a month after the book had come out. So for me, that was actually one of the things that was kind of really impressive about the novel, was that it was her first novel, and that for her first novel, it was so well put together. So I guess, what do you guys think about that? Do you also find, like, I tend to find that first-time authors and novels tend to be a little bit iffy. Like, there's often some good ideas and then some really poor execution. So I guess, do you guys tend to agree with that or disagree? How did you feel about it? I
didn't feel like it was a first novel. I didn't realize I didn't know either that this was her first novel. But reading it, you get the sense that this would be the kind of author who has like 2 or 3 books that have been out and done okay, but haven't really broke through. And with the amount of attention that this book got when it did come out, was very surprised to find out that it was a first author's work, because it doesn't read like one. It's for all of its ambition and for what it pulls off and the thoughts it conveys. It's astounding for a first book.
She's put a lot of stuff into that. So many thoughts and concepts and interesting writing, and yeah, just amazing for a first novel. She was quite well known for short stories. Well, then should add.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Short stories don't necessarily translate all the time.
Oh yeah, it's a different world, but yeah.
And I think we never know really how many books maybe an author has already begun, written, got rid of, got rejected or something. I don't know how, if she tried doing a novel before and then maybe put it away or had it rejected or something. But for first effort, yeah, that was really good.
So last thing, do you guys want to talk about some of the stuff that happened in the end? So we will talk about spoilers now. If you haven't read the book and don't want to be spoiled, you should go away.
Although you wouldn't have understood half of what we just discussed.
Probably true.
Yeah, but we left out the big one, the Darth Vader is Luke's father one.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, Ananda, me and I. Yes. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Somebody said, right, you pronounce me and I like me and I because it is literally me and I.
Wow.
Nice.
So, okay, I guess this reveal at the end that, or sort of in the middle, that Animander Mianai is fighting himself was really...
Herself.
Oh, was really interesting to me. Like, it wasn't what I saw coming. I wasn't really expecting that. So it was a surprise to me, and I really liked that. And I think at that point in the book, when we find that out and like realize what's really going on, is when I really got interested in the story.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that this whole struggle, this whole conflict exists on one person having a crisis of self, you know, or the person at the top having a huge crisis of self, and at the same time it was also strange because it's like, well, who, you know, the same problem that Breck has. Who do you root for? Whose side are you on? Because, you know, which one's not good? Which one's the one trying to do bad stuff? And how do I know the person I'm talking to is either or? It was confusing for me at the end, that part specifically.
And I had the feeling that it was not only a two-way split. I read it that it was actually a three-way split, because we had like a small part of the AI doing something and another small part working against it, and both of their goals was that the main part of the AI didn't actually know what's going on, and only then in the end, when the AI is totally or not, maybe not the AI, yeah, but when the entity actually is totally aware of her inner conflict, then really it starts to fall apart and go into two different two different camps. But for most of the time, I had the feeling there's three.
Yeah, no, I think it's more that the two don't know that they're two. She doesn't know that she has a split personality, if you see what I mean. So
okay,
they both think they're operating as one, which is like the big self. But there are parts of her that are doing stuff independently, which would be the one side or the other, but it's actually just two. It's two who think they're one.
I kind of read it as like there's one big part of her, the like part that everybody thinks is the part that's her, and then there's potentially infinitely more other parts doing other things and trying to hide from themselves. And in this book, we probably see at least two of those, but there are potentially everybody is its own independent will trying to self-sabotage. Because there are definitely, based on what we know about the people who come on to Justice of Torn, there are definitely at least two parts that are trying to bring down the middle part, like the major bulk of the AI. But there could be others, and that the whole Justice of Torn thing just doesn't factor into their plan, so we never see them. Like, it's hard to say how many wars the Emperor is fighting against herself.
Yes, I mean, it's hard for us to try and conceive of it because she is a multi-bodied entity. Like, she isn't a singular being. So, yeah, how do we conceive of that as singular beings?
Yeah. And I think that is what is not actually totally solved in this first installment. So that is maybe something that we want to learn about in the upcoming books. For me personally, the question was how got Ananda there into this position, and how she evolved into that entity, for example. And that is a question that is open at the end of the book.
I never know if I want these big questions answered, because often I think that it would be too simple if you could answer it. Something like that. There might be a small moment where something snapped. Like, you get the feeling that it was probably something to do with Garceth or the Presker, the aliens that forced the treaty on them.
The treaty was interesting. Hearing about that and just sort of like, I don't know if I fully understand why they went and did all that, but I thought when they announced it, like, hey, our enemy, we've actually made a treaty with them, and it was just like, what? Anyway.
Yeah,
I
I liked that. Yeah, well, they were the only aliens in the book. Like, that's what is interesting in this world of alien cultures. The aliens that we don't see are the only actual aliens. All the characters are humans or AIs, or AIs in human bodies, really.
Yeah. Because there's that one place that she goes to where the people have been like heavily modifying themselves, so now they don't look human anymore.
Yeah.
But yes.
All of the go on.
This might not be spoilery, but there's that little section at the end of the book where it's like the interview with the author and that kind of thing. I thought it was really neat to read that little interview or blurb with Ann Leckie, were just some of her inspirations for the story and where it came from, and even just how she got into how she kind of feels that Breck humming the song, and would be kind of similar to like Sacred Heart music, and I started looking up all that kind of stuff and got really into it now. She's an author who seems to have a very interesting background of experience in terms of culture or interests. It's not the sort of things I would associate with the story that we've got, but that's kind of the interesting thing about authors, is that they can take really normal things that they're interested in and actually turn them into completely new ideas when in the science fiction and fantasy that they write. I think it's amazing.
I don't think my part had that interview with the author at the end.
No, I don't think mine did.
Oh no, really? Oh, it's in the ebook, but it has like the Orbit logo on it. No, oh well, okay, forget it.
I'm sure I've read lots of interview stuff with her, and she's an interesting person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was a recording engineer or something at some point, so I guess music would be part of that.
Wow,
I liked Breck's singing. One of the song she kept singing, "My heart is a fish hiding in the water grass." Thought that was pretty telling.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't thought about it, but yes, it is. All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Should we wrap up?
I guess just one thing, and maybe you guys can explain it to me, because this was the part that confused me. At the very end, when they're in that spaceship heading towards another spaceship, and Anander is like outside the airlock trying to get in, can somebody explain to me what was fully going on there, and how did that resolve? Because I'm still really confused about that part, even though it's probably straightforward, but something about that whole thing, that whole chapter, has left me with a big question mark over my head going, what just happened? And I don't fully know. I'm completely stupid about that chapter.
So this is.
They're trying to get to. She's trying to get to another justice, I believe, to prevent it from firing its engines and exploding at the will and command of Anander.
It's one version of Anander trying to stop Breck carrying out the orders of another Anander.
Okay, yeah.
But what was confusing?
The whole thing.
But then she was like clinging to the ship like a monkey.
Yeah, I get that part. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's just like, wow, she's really determined to stop her. But how that actually wrapped up really confuses me. So like, it's almost like the chapter ends with her blacking out, and then she wakes up, and it's like this is sort of what happened, and I was just confused. Like I can't even explain it. That's how confused I was.
I can't remember the details of the scene, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I remember that was blurry for me as well. But I was I think at this point I wanted to go or to get to the end, and I often have that when there are like action scenes or battle scenes at the end, that I more than glance over and then go to the that is the outcome part, but not really paying much attention to if there was actually an airlock opened and somebody was sucked out or something. I don't know. I can't recall that either. I know in the beginning there I think are like 4 clone bodies of another me and I keep thinking Minnie Mouse now. Yeah. There were like 4 bodies clinging to the ship, and they get rid of 3 of them somehow. But then the last one kind of gets into the ship, and then my mind says that was an airlock thing but
there was definitely something with airlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated.
I mean, it was exciting. It was really compelling, but at the end of it, I was when it got to like the actual resolution of the story, I found I was a little lost. Where I'm just like and I've read it a few times, just trying to, figure out that one section. But it's just, and it might be straightforward, but it's just really evaded me, and it's made the ending.
Oh, it was all about news spreading, right? Mm. Because it's all about time. Do you remember way back in the beginning when they're on oars and they keep referring to this incident where somebody has defied someone to not kill some aliens? Yeah. But they keep saying it's probably already been decided. We don't know, they keep going, it's undecided, but in reality it is decided because they're 5 light years away. So the reason Anander is trying to blow the thing up or stop it being blown up is so that news of stuff to do with Anander doesn't spread to the wider empire. That's the key bit of it, isn't it? It's time, because if she she destroys the ship, news won't spread very fast because they will be stuck so many months, years, however far from all the different places, whereas if that ship gets away, news will spread fast.
Okay, I think that's bringing it back. It's coming into focus for me now. Okay.
I don't know why that suddenly occurred to me. I was thinking about that. There's obviously something going on with time and space, and time and space and space. Surprise, surprise.
And maybe another question, because what do you guys think was the main goal Breck wanted to achieve? Because when you get a gun to shoot someone, you want to kill the person, but she had to be she had to know that she wasn't able to kill Ananda because he has like this the millions of bodies. So was her goal to make the entity aware of its conflict and then let chaos rule, or that because that was what I read into it, but I wasn't sure if that was the goal from the get-go for Breck.
I think that's her goal. I think her goal is to let Animander and the world know about Animander's internal conflict, because that is the only way that she can get back at Animander, and I don't think she really cares about all of the consequences that will happen after that. Like, she mostly cares about getting back at Animander. And the only way to do that
I read it as she wanted to know why Ananda killed Orn, why everything went very strange, like why she had all the faked orders and things like that, because she has the gun and she doesn't kill her. If she wanted to kill her, she'd have killed her. So,
but I don't
yeah,
think she can kill the whole, like, she can't really
well, I
kill.
know she's multi-bodied, so she can't really kill her, but she wanted to know why more than she wanted, because on Nilt, her idea of vengeance seems to be very much of a, like, just kill as many bodies as she can. That, like, she actually says, I'm going to kill Ananda, me and I. But the closer she gets to it, the more you learn of the storyline of the strange orders, the weird things, the more she suspects, like, what the hell's going on, and then she finds out, you know, that it's true that there's a split. And then, I don't know if she wants to cause chaos so much as not chaos. She wants the truth out. But maybe she wants Ananda removed from power. But I don't think...
Yeah, possibly she believes the truth will get out anyway, so it's better, like, to let it out now rather than let things become even worse in Anander's conflict.
I think she more just wants, you know, things to be right and just. Justice. That is her name. Because Ananda being split means that she's messing up what the way of the world is meant to be.
Yeah, because that is the interesting outcome of it, because now it seems that there will be, like, chaos going on. Oh, I didn't read the whole question, but Brock has a question from Estelle, I think.
Yeah.
What is?
I think we kind of covered this one. Oh. Can you think of some other science fiction debuts that received as much praise and awards as this one?
I can't think of a science fiction one, but when we were talking about it, Ben Aronovich's Rivers of London, which is fantasy. Pretty sure that was his first novel. I want to say first novel. I know he was a writer for a long time before that, but I don't know if he wrote novels. And the reason it occurred to me was because it has the matching covers from one single painting as well.
Ah.
So that's the key to winning a Hugo Award, then, is to have the right cover.
All in the cover.
Yeah. I can't even see one of them. Oh, yes.
I was thinking, is the Wind-Up Girl, is that Paolo Bacci?
No, definitely not.
I think I think Paolo had a few books written before that, didn't she?
Oh, maybe it was the first. I know it was part of a series of things.
It's part of his series, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what order they were. I mean, it's not part of a series. It's one of many books set in the same world. I'm not sure which book in that world was written first. And apparently no one else does, so that's okay.
I'm having a hard time figuring out what other ones. Yeah.
No, it was his first novel. But he's got, like before, lots of short stories and collections. So yeah, you're right.
Oh,
it was
and
his first novel, and it won the Hugo.
Yeah. Also, Ringworld was Larry Niven's first novel as well, and it won the Hugo. Although
I did not like that.
I didn't really like that one either.
I never finished it.
I've never even
I like the
started
concept.
I would agree that I like the concept of that one, but I didn't like that book that much. But, yeah.
I think it was just because Wimby, when it was written, it's just aged a little bit in terms of narrative and where stories have come nowadays. And so with Ringworld, I never got through it. It felt too of its time. Sorry to fans of Ringworld.
Yeah, it was very of its time. What was China Mieville's first novel?
I thought his was Perdido Street Station, wasn't it?
Station, yeah.
Is that his first one?
I thought it was.
No.
No? Oh, no, King Rat. King Rat was his first one.
King Rat. That was bloody weird.
I want to read that one.
It's a weird one, but yeah, it's good. Yeah, Perdido Street Station's the second one. Yeah, second one. Alright, so not bad for a second novel.
So I guess what we're concluding is that first novels, it's hard for first novels to be Hugo nominated, or it's not a common thing, I guess you could say.
It's not common, I think we'll go for.
Not really. You kind of have to have that something that's really going to draw people in and make them.
And
but the interesting thing will be to see.
A major publisher.
Yeah. And the interesting thing will be to see if maybe now with more promotion, like Booktube, for example, maybe books that got the Booktube SFF hashtag very often end
We can
up
promote books.
winning the Hugo. I would like to see that. Make our influence count.
I want to get to be a part of it next year because it's going to be in.
Yeah, it's going to be in like Portland.
Spokane. It's going to be in Spokane. And I'm just like, that is so close. I could totally drive there. And I'm like, oh yeah, sign up for the membership and do the voting and everything. I'm just like, oh, that'd be so much fun.
Do it. If you can do it, it's so amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, oh my god, I had the best time ever at Worldcon. And being there at the Hugo Awards is just, it's lovely. Just so nice. Yeah, I would totally recommend it, and I recommend volunteering and helping out because you get to know people at the convention, and it's brilliant fun.
Oh, volunteering would be great. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys want to be done? I think we've pretty much talked about everything. Anything else anyone wants to bring up, or are we pretty much done?
Oh, random fact: a demolished man looks like it was a first novel, and that was the first Hugo winner.
Was that his first novel?
Was it The Demolished Man?
He was very prolific. Yeah, Demolished Man was the first Hugo Award.
There are some others that were given like retroactively, but Demolished Man was the first one.
Is that the one? Is that Tensor Said the Tensor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of stuff, but none of them was a novel.
Okay.
Until The Demolished Man.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm going off the lists on Wikipedia, so don't blame me if it's wrong.
No.
Oh yeah. I just found out this week that Wikipedia cannot be trusted.
No.
Really?
How has Wikipedia spurned you?
I did this the first part of my guide to fantasy this week, and I spoke about the terms high fantasy and low fantasy, and I had a lot of stuff, and I just wanted to go to the Wikipedia and then see if they had stuff that I forgot and could add to it, and then I looked it up, and oh, they're doing it all wrong. Cool. Yeah, I don't need that. So. Yeah.
I found out
I was
Wikipedia lies too, like the first time I took a science class in college, because the Wikipedia articles for most scientific stuff are terrible. Like, really bad, which is kind of...
But then isn't the same to be said for any textbook that they give you before university about science, that they're like, oh, we need to simplify it, so we'll just tell them lies.
That's also kind of true, actually. Alright, so time to be done?
I think that's it. We're definitely off topic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you
totally.
all for
We've
watching.
wound down.
Next month, so the Booktube Reading Buddies next month, what we're doing is a little bit of a different format where we're just reading horror novels. So there's a whole list of horror novels that were nominated, and the challenge is to read as many as you can. So hopefully you can join us all for that. I don't know if we'll be doing a live show for that. We haven't really exactly worked out how that's going to go. And I believe, Elizabeth, do you want to mention your Frankenstein read-along that you're doing?
Yeah. Randomly I am decided to do a read-along of Frankenstein in the month of October because it's Halloween and Gothic and thought they went together rather well. Plus, the British Library and BBC in the UK are launching a series of events and exhibitions on Gothic, so it's very appropriate, and there will be lots of stuff going on, so there'll be TV for anybody who can get BBC stuff. So yeah, that is happening on Twitter under the hashtag #SassyReads, #SassyReads, and there is a group on Goodreads called Sassy Reads. There's a link on my video where I talk about it, where you can get to the group. It's open, so you can just join in, and we'll be doing discussions every week on the forums, and then I might make some videos and probably do a live show roundup at the end of the month. So if anyone wants to join in with that as well, they are welcome.
All right, sounds good. So I guess that's all for today. And oh, do we have a question? Hold on. How do I make the questions appear?
Well, we've got Connie Andrea, who is basically saying she's halfway through but doesn't want to be spoiled, or I really want to watch this, but I'm in the middle. Yeah, I don't want it to be spoiled. I'm sure you're having a great discussion. It's mostly just comments. What is it? Bree from Stories from the Shelf has a long one here. I haven't read it all. It just showed up. So I stepped out for a while. I don't know if you've talked about it, but I think there's a very interesting identity narrative theme. The dual elements of individual and collective seem to be really dependent on Brecht's narrative, as well as the general belief about the AIs. They don't take on the individual so much as the individual is absorbed into the collective. Is largely a cultural narrative about AIs in the book and doesn't seem to be true. Example, the individual becomes Brecht, but Brecht later takes on the individual's characteristics counter to the narrative that AIs are sterile. So an interesting comment there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's like I was saying about she's not meant to be human. The AI is meant to take over the human body and possess it, but becomes humanized by being in a human body, becomes affected by it, and has personalities and things. I think, sort of. There's a lot of blurring of boundaries in this book. There's the gender, there's the individual and collective, there's the individual and society, and it's reflected a lot in geographical boundaries. Somebody mentioned on our discussions, which I thought was fascinating, and you see it in the language, you see it in all kinds of things that happen. I've marked so many things in the book. It's not just geographical things, but clothes, language, music. There's like on Oars particularly, like the plants and the water are invading onto the land and the buildings and things. Everything is blurred. Everything is blurred. There's no hard lines.
And I think in the character of Brecht in the end, as I said, as I read it, we have this element of justice that, from my point of view, clearly comes from the AI side and is very rational, and we have this raw emotion of love for Lieutenant Ann, and then there are mixed in the individual. So I wouldn't really say that the individual is totally becomes like too disconnected as the AI, because she is motivated by emotion still, or by human emotion. So I would say it's a mix-up of both elements.
Yeah, definitely. Random non-Ancillary Justice one, we got a comment that said, we missed Neuromancer as a first novel winner.
Ooh.
Probably one of the most famous.
So William Gibson hitting him out of the park right from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone for an hour and a half, so that's longer than normal, so I'm going to put us out there.
Well, thanks for letting us go.
Yes, thanks everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.